G'day, I'm Paul. The Mazda CX-9 is one of our favourite big SUVs, but if that's not luxury enough for you and you want to go the next step above, the Audi Q7 is one of the next rungs up the ladder as you climb your way to the luxury SUV. This has recently received a facelift and they've thrown the feature book at it as well. This is the Q7 45 TDI. It is the entry level to the Q7 range. It's priced at just over $100,000 and it competes with cars like the BMW X5, the Mercedes-Benz GLE and the Volvo XC90. Today we're going to do a detailed review of the Q7 to see whether it's worth the big step up from the CX-9. If you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes up on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, just scroll down to see the chapters below. If you haven't done so already, hit like, press subscribe, and also hit the bell icon so you can find out every single time we're driving a new Q7. Let's talk exterior. So you have a set of colors to choose from, but if you don't pick the base black, Audi will slog you $2,100 for the privilege of picking something else. It's just an insane amount of money. I don't understand why it just becomes infinitely more expensive to paint a car when you get to the likes of an Audi, a Mercedes-Benz, or BMW or something. Anyway, let's talk about the design. So I'm going to start down here with this grille. Part of this design change was headlights and also a wider, bigger grille. They're almost BMW sized at the moment. They're huge and they're kind of broken up by this number plate, but that's all partly thanks to cars like the SQ7, the SQ8, RSQ8 that need big breathing apparatuses to get air into that engine. And this is kind of the same thing. This is a V6 diesel, but you still need air to get in there. But you can see they have blanked out some of these unnecessary holes. On the front here, you'll see the Quattro badge, which means all-wheel drive in Audi speak. You've got sensors here for the radar system and then front parking sensors in there. Now have a look at these headlights. These are seriously cool. I've said in our other Audi reviews that Audi's headlight and taillight game is really strong. I love these vertical slats of LED lights. Really gives this car quite the character. And then you have full LED headlights with these running lights that are on all the time. Look at this as well. So you've got a radiator behind here, but they've chiseled this out and given it a 3D design, which is pretty cool. So this is the standard wheel design. This is the base model Q7. So this is the base wheel. It's a 19-inch alloy wheel. Doesn't look all that fancy. You've got quite a chubby profile tire there. This car comes with air suspension with adaptive dampers. So that means that in addition to the chubby profile tire should mean that this rides quite nicely, which is what the Q7 is known for. Let's have a look at the rest of the car. You've got those indicators built into the wing mirror. Quite a big chunky wing mirror. 360-degree camera. There's one of those modules there. You've got another one on the front. Got this gloss aluminium roof rail. Come around to the back. This is slightly more resolved now as well. And there's that theme again with those lights. You've got those vertical LED slats. This is all increased slightly, but the overall shape of this boot is the same. You can see how it comes around the side here. And when we actually open it up later, you'll see how much space that takes up. That is to give you a much bigger load entry point. Then you've got this badge here. I mean, this stuff still doesn't really make any sense to me. Audi changed from their previous nomenclature to, there's a stupid journalist word, but to this, which is 45 TDI. This references the power band that this car sits in. And they designed this setup so that it's easy to use on electric cars where you don't have a specific engine size. This gives you the ability to group everything together in power bands. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but that means kind of base level power. But yeah, I really like the look of this. It looks nice and premium. Despite the fact this is entry level, it doesn't kind of scream entry level aside from those wheels, and you can then tart it up with other things to make it look a little bit more expensive than it actually is. So we're inside the Q7, and this is where a lot of the changes have taken place with the interior. Gone is the screen that used to sit up the top here, and Audi has now moved to this two-tier setup. I quite like the layout. It looks really nice and sharp with this continuous vent line. You can see this is all faux venting over here, but this is the real stuff. Not a huge fan of all the piano black. There is acres of it here. This stuff marks and scratches really easily, and it just leaves fingerprints everywhere. Same with these screens. You can see fingerprint marks all over them, and it would be nice to be able to select some other material here. Same story with the doors. The base material is this sort of plasticky, brushed faux aluminium stuff. You can get open pore wood inlays there. I think that's probably going to be a better option to make this look a little less entry level. But outside of that, it all looks nice. Now, how soft is all of this stuff? We have a hardness tester for that. We've tested all of these surfaces, but if you want to see how the Q7 compares to other cars, in the description below, you'll see a link to a table with the rest of our results. So let's have a look at infotainment. Now we have a detailed review of Audi's MMI system. If you want to watch that, you can click up here. But today what I'm going to do is take you through a brief overlook just so you can get an idea of what it does and how it all works. So it's split across three main screens. You have the 10.1-inch display up the top, this 8.6-inch display down the bottom, and then Audi's virtual cockpit, which sits ahead of the driver. There's no head-up display. That is an optional extra. Now with this screen, it is interesting because instead of just being a touch screen, which is what it is, you can swipe through the menus like that, it also has haptic feedback. So as you push down on the buttons, you get a little response on your finger and you hear it click, which is really cool. So that just confirms that it has logged your request and you don't need a second look at the screen. That's where Audi's going with a whole lot of their screens at the moment. So how does it all work? Well, you have this main display, which is the home screen. There you have the radio menu where you'll find AM, FM, DAB plus digital radio, in addition to the ability to stream online music using the connected SIM that is inside the glove box here. Then you have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I'll show you what that looks like. Really nice integration. It's super high resolution, flicks between these screens very fast, and I just love the way that looks. That is a really neat setup. Then in terms of media, you have internal storage plus the ability to stream from your phone over Bluetooth or the connected USB devices or an SD card. Telephone is simply connected to the phone. If you don't have CarPlay or Android Auto, it will just use Bluetooth, and then it's backed up by a voice recognition system that can either send commands through your phone's smartphone mirroring system, or it can go straight through the car. The car's system is really great, so if you don't have a phone connected, you'll still be able to do navigation entry and basic commands around the car. The navigation system is fantastic. So this uses online connectivity to give you a satellite overlay. It's nice and fast, and it also uses the cloud to search for points of interest, so everything's nice and quick. Moving on to car, this is where you'll find all the car's details. You'll be able to select all the individual configurations for the car's drive modes, and you'll be able to change all the settings such as the lighting, what the suspension's doing, and also your driver assist controls. You can switch everything from maximum to minimum depending on what you want to be doing. You also have a built-in help screen here. This includes the car's manual, including setup tips. And then finally, if we jump over to this screen, you have weather and messages, plus the ability to select all your user profiles. So you can have an individual profile for each person that uses the car. Now, one last thing I want to touch on here that's being rolled out into a lot of Audis, not yet available in Australia because we don't have the infrastructure, but it's called Car2X. And it allows the car to communicate with a cloud. I know we always talk about all this cloud stuff, but the cloud is effectively running a whole bunch of traffic lights in Europe at the moment. And in some cities where they have full connectivity, the car is able to find out when the next set of lights is turning green or red, and you'll be able to keep a set speed and know that the next set of lights will be green. This will overall reduce fuel consumption and also mean that you're not going to spend time in traffic jams because you're always going the fastest way possible. Love all that technology. Let's have a quick look at the 8.6-inch screen beneath your main infotainment screen. This is where all your climate controls are. So at the moment it's off. One push of that flicks everything on. And you can see here you can control all the zones of climate or set everything to automatic. Heated seats are off to the side, and then you can also set up shortcuts on the top here, and then you have readily available buttons there such as the stop-start system and the hill descent control. Now let's move on to Audi's virtual cockpit. That's the screen here that sits in front of the driver. This technology has advanced over the past few years, and just a quick side story. I did a tour of NVIDIA in Silicon Valley. NVIDIA is a graphics card manufacturer. If you're into computers, you probably would have heard that name before. They're actually big into autonomy, so they do a lot of the processing power for car cameras that are used in autonomous emergency braking and AI. They also develop a lot of the hardware for these screens, which makes them so fast. So it's pretty cool to see those two worlds coming together. So this screen gives you tachometer on the left, speedometer on the right. You can merge between two different displays where you get more information on the screen or bigger dials. Then you have a radio menu there as well, phone menu, and then also your navigation. And I love the ability to have this big navigation screen ahead of the driver. So this technology is really cool. It is super fast as well. You can see as we flick through those different screens, there is absolutely no lag at all. And this comes standard in the Q7. Now, enough about infotainment. Let's talk about the features that you're getting standard. Tri-zone climate control. So one zone for the driver, one for the front passenger, and then one for the rest of the car. Then on top of that, you have heated seats for the front row. And in terms of safety tech, they have absolutely thrown the feature book at this. You have low and high speed autonomous emergency braking, radar cruise control with a lane keeping assistant, blind spot monitoring. I also love the exit assistance. So the way this works is if you go to open the door, the car will warn you that there's another car coming or a cyclist coming by flashing an LED light in here and the blind spot monitoring as well. So it's going to prevent those unfortunate incidents where people open their doors into cyclists. You also have an auto dimming rear vision mirror and a 360-degree camera. I'm going to show you what that looks like because it's quite a fascinating setup. So you can see here with the 360 camera, you get a display of the car there, or what you can do is go to the 3D mode where you can control everything around the car. You can zoom in and zoom out, or go to preset angles where it will then zip around and show you other angles of the car. And then if you go back to your 2D mode, then you have the ability to change the rest of the angles as you go. The only downside is the quality isn't amazing. I would have loved to see just something slightly higher resolution, but it is a really cool setup as a standard 360 camera. Let's talk practicality, and we'll start with storage and phone. So you can keep your phone in here. It kind of doesn't really fit too well, but you do have a wireless phone charger. You can drop it into there and away it goes. And in terms of bottles, easily fits into there, and you have little teeth to hold the bottle into position. And then inside the door, you've also got bottle storage with a little bit of extra room. There's also this little storage hole. Then in terms of the rest of your storage, this isn't the world's biggest center console. Once you've got the phone in there, there's barely any room, but the good thing is it folds out, and have a look at that. It actually comes up and out when you move it to give you a little bit of purchase. And then the glove box here, look, it's reasonably sized, but the second you close it, you kind of run out of room. It's a little deceptive when you see it like that. Now, another cool feature on Practicality is this sun visor. So you open this up, you've got an LED light built into there, but you can pop this over here, extend it a bit if you're getting a little bit of sun creeping in through there. But what you can also do is pull down a secondary visor so you have full coverage from the sun. Now, what about comfort? These are the basic seats that you get. They are fairly comfortable. They sort of feel nice to sit in. You've got electric seat adjustment with memory on the side. All of your controls are really easy to reach, so this is all good. But the only downside to this system is that while you're driving and you're sort of trying to concentrate on the road, you're going to have to take your eyes off the road and look down here to adjust your climate controls. So it can be a little bit distracting, I think. Alrighty, let's talk second row and the amount of room that I have here. Look at that, stacks of knee room, acres of toe room, and plenty of headroom as well. Now keep in mind, because this is a 3-row SUV, I have the ability to move my seat, and you can actually move all 3 seats individually to give your third row passengers a little bit more room. They also recline if you want to give yourself a little bit more space there, so pretty versatile. I'll get that back into position. You get a center armrest here, with 2 cup holders. So let's see how they work. Oh, it's interesting. They are the world's smallest cup holders because they won't fit a bottle. It's so weird. I don't actually know what you can fit in there. They're so small. That is weird. Okay, bit of a negative there. You get 3 ISOFIX points, 2 on the outboard seats and then 1 in the center. Map pockets here, then USB charging down the bottom, 12-volt outlet. This is where your third zone of climate is controlled with vents here and also in the B-pillar. And then the weirdest thing, inside the doors you have an ashtray, which is very 1990s, and then you can of course put your bottle in the door as well with a little bit of room on the sides. Now before we clamber into the third row, I want to show you something that's kind of annoying me. Watch this. So when you go to close the door, the internal pressure in the car plus these seals makes it quite hard to close. So when you shut it, it's quite hard for it to actually close properly unless you slam it. Now to show you that it is the pressure, I'll leave this open and then I'll close this from here. You can see that it just closes straight away without any dramas, whereas when that's closed, the same thing just stops it from closing properly. So a little bit annoying. The soft close feature would fix that, but it's not something that you want to have to option. So let's have a look at the third row. To get access to it, it's pretty straightforward. You can fold the seat flat so that you have more boot space, but what you can also do is pull it completely out of the way by lifting this, and you can hear the gas strut lifting there, and that gives you your entrance to the third row. And then the seats raise just by using these electric controls. Up they go, they're fairly brisk. Okay, so there isn't a great deal of legroom there, but I will try squeeze in anyway. Okay, so Turn myself around, pop these up. Okay, so you can see here that there is like no leg room. I'm going to put this down. Oh man, that is terrible. Pull that up as well. So yeah, this is a kid-only zone, but just to give you an idea of how much room you could have if you actually shifted these rows forward. Igor, do you want to just pull that side and this middle one as well? Okay, yeah, cool. And then the middle one, perfect. Okay, so you can see there that once those rows are moved, you have better legroom, and then you can kind of, actually, yeah, it is a bit tricky to fit in here, and you do have greatly reduced legroom in the second row. So this is very much more a kid zone. I don't think you're going to be really fitting an adult here. But if you are back here, you have cup holders, but no air vents at all by the looks of it. You do have airbag coverage, which is good. And then your seat belts just tuck into the roof, and you then pull them down and then clip them in. Let's talk cargo capacity. So these three-row SUVs, often you don't have much cargo space. That's actually pretty reasonable. There's just under 300 litres of cargo space available with the third row in position. Now under here you have a subwoofer by the looks of it and a tyre repair kit. There isn't a spare tyre. Now something is interesting, and this cover is sort of quite loose. It has these guides that it goes into, but as you can see, it doesn't really sit flush. You've got to really sort of get it in there. That's a little bit cheap and nasty, I think. It's actually a bit of a pain. Anyway, there it is. Oh no, still not there. That'll do, whatever. You've got a storage net on the side with a 12-volt outlet. This is also where you'll find your lowering system. So if this is too high to load things in, one push of this drops the rear of the car. There it goes now, going all the way down, and that gives you a much easier access port for getting luggage into the car. Now, with that in mind, can we fit our luggage into this 295 litre space? Oh, I think we can. I'm actually keen to try that. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can get a suitcase in there. Yeah, that's worked at charm. Excellent. All right, I'll crack this back open again. Now, what happens when you drop that third row? So I'll pull our luggage out once more. Third row drops with these controls here. There it goes. Okay, so with this dropped, you have just under 800 litres of cargo space available, which is a really reasonable space. It then expands to a little under 2,000 litres when you drop the second row. I'll show you what that looks like. So that folds, and then that folds, and then there we go. And just under 2,000 litres of space. Pretty impressive. We've hit the road in the Q7. Under the bonnet is a new Euro 6 compliant engine. It produces 170 kilowatts of power and 500 Newton meters of torque. Now, just as a side note, a little while ago we reviewed the Touareg, and you can click up here to watch that review. We complained that the engine was a little bit dated because it's shared with the Amarok. The Touareg is actually getting this engine as well. So you could kind of get a cut price Q7 by picking that if you so desire. Now the gearbox that links all of this together is an 8-speed automatic. It's not a dual clutch, it is just a traditional torque converter, and it is an incredibly smooth gearbox. When you take off, it shifts through gears really nice and gently, and it's just never in the wrong gear. It's always ready to roll. Now, what does that mean for fuel economy? So the official figure is 7 litres per 100 kilometres. What are we averaging right now? Let's have a look. We're averaging 9.3, so a little way away from that, but the car has been idling for a little while. But it gives you an idea that these fuel economies are only ever achievable if you're driving gently and have a lot of highway driving. When you do throw in a bit of city driving, a bit of idling, it generally creeps up a little bit, but 9.3 is still pretty reasonable for a car this size. And also the fuel tank is 85 litres, which means you're going to get over 1,200 kilometres of driving range. Now, one of the cool things they've fitted to this car is a mild hybrid system. That's new to the Q7. It's a 48-volt system, and again, if this is new to you, you can have a look at our GLE Mercedes-Benz review, where I go over 48 volts and how that system works and why it's coming to so many new cars. You can watch that review by clicking up here. But what it allows the car to do is run a belt alternator starter, and that's a system that uses a motor generator to start the car. It's far smoother than a traditional starter, and that means that it can operate at speeds of 22 kilometers an hour, and I'll show you what that looks like. So right now we're doing about 40. I'm going to roll to a stop, and you'll see as we reach around 20, it will kill the car. There it goes, it switches off right there. As I roll off the throttle, it is imperceptible the way that it switches on. You cannot even feel the engine kicking over. Is really impressive. And then what it's able to do at speeds of up to 160 kilometers an hour, it can coast with the car switched off, but all the systems running. So that's where you get that 48 volt. It brings more power to the system and allows the car to run all of its auxiliary power requirements without having the engine running. And just quickly on that system, it uses a lithium battery, and then while it's coasting, it's able to provide up to 8 kilowatts of energy to the battery system that it can later use to run all of these auxiliary power requirements. So 0 to 100 takes place in 7.3 seconds, which is pretty impressive for a car like this that weighs well over 2,000 kilograms. This is what that looks like. So let's talk about the drive modes you have available. You've got everything from all-road, which is like an off-road mode. It lifts the suspension up and it adjusts the stability control tuning, right through to comfort, automatic, dynamic. Now we're in comfort mode at the moment. I'll tell you what, they have absolutely nailed the ride here. The air suspension that comes standard with this car and those high profile tyres means that it glides along. You can throw it at speed humps, you can throw it at potholes, it just won't have any drama in the world. And that means that when you do have this full of passengers, it's not going to be nauseating while you're driving. It will just be nice and comfortable, even if you are in that third row. So what happens when you pop it into dynamic mode? So we'll hit that. So the suspension drops down a little bit. The throttle becomes a little more sensitive. We'll give this a little punch. Yeah, look, 500 Newton meters of torque is okay, but it's not an earth-shattering amount. And while it does sit nice and flat through the corners, that air suspension is keeping everything nice and taut. The adaptive dampers go a little firmer, the steering becomes heavier. It's just not backed up by a massive push from the engine. But you do have paddle shifters, so you can manually select your gears, or you can select sport mode just by pulling it down or revert back to drive. It's all there and ready to go. I just think if you want a little bit more punch, you're probably going to have to go for the diesel engine that's above this, or check out the new Q7, which is coming soon. That's like the sporty version of the Q7 range. Okay, we'll go back into comfort mode. Now, the other thing to take note here is how quiet it is inside the cabin. There is a stack of noise insulation here, and the engine barely makes a peep when it's going. But on top of that, when you are cruising at highway speeds, you don't really hear much coming into the cabin. That again backs up that smooth ride by giving you a nice, serene environment to be seated in. Let's talk visibility. Yes, this is a big lumbering car, but visibility at the front is excellent. The wing mirrors are nice and big, and then visibility out the rear is fantastic. That window is huge. You've got blind spot monitoring built into those wing mirrors, and it's just a really easy car to drive. If you're not used to a car this size, it'll be easy to go from something smaller into this and not feel too intimidated by it. In terms of towing, 3,500 kilograms of braked towing capacity. So if you've got a big caravan or a horse float, this is going to be the right option for you. So the Audi Q7, there is a lot to like about this car. There's stacks of room inside, and the recent facelift has brought with it a whole bunch of new technology, both under the bonnet and inside the cabin. This is cheaper than the GLE, and I think it's a better driving experience. You're getting a much more cohesive package. Yes, the GLE is quite fancy with all the tech that it has inside, but for $100,000, this really just fits the bill in terms of a luxury SUV. So let me know in the comments below what you think about the Audi Q7. Would you buy this over an X5 or a GLE? The X5 is quite sporty compared to this, and the XC90 is just as nice, but has been out for a little while. So I'm curious to see what everyone thinks about this new Q7. Let me know in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure you share it, hit the like button, follow it up with subscribe and the bell icon as well. But until next time, take it easy.